Hi, good morning. So I'm Robin from Sustainable Infrastructure team based in Singapore. So I'll be sharing a little bit more on transforming data center cooling with sustainable as a service model. So it should take the industry forward much faster, addressing all the challenges the end user actually does. So first, let's take a look at what we have in global footprint. For Johnson's Control, we actually have footprint across 150 countries. We have around 100,000 experts globally, so that we can actually tap all the knowledge from different region, learn from them, and actually made it a state-of-art kind of a design for all the buildings, including data centers. Right, looking closer to in terms of the mapping, right, in Asia Pacific where we are actually today, we have close to about 24,000 experts located in this region itself. Right, so get into the details about data centers. So from a survey that was done globally, right, it was actually pointed out cooling as one of the main critical failure that actually fail a data center's operations, right? It actually is almost 20 times more likely, right, as compared to all other services like fire or even cybersecurity. So actually cooling kind of operation uptimes and operability is actually one of the key, right, to a successful operations of data centers. Right, looking at the mapping in terms of all the different capacities within globally, if you look interestingly, where we are now, Singapore is actually one of the biggest kind of setup. Right, we are actually standing at about 1,000 megawatt. Right, and coming right next is Tokyo in second, and Australia, Sydney at third. Right, looking at the trends and challenge that we have, the data center users actually face in today's market, right? The first and most important thing is the speed to market, right? The fastest they actually commission the plant up and running, right? That's where the money comes in, the revenue comes in from the end user, right? Next, when they go into when they start operating, the next critical features is operability and uptime, right? Next is to improve the utilization of the capacities. How do we make it even more efficient as they operate? Right, and the last two is really cost savings and how do we manage the carbon footprint where decarbonization, net zero is a key trend. Also, one of the surveys that was actually done lately, looking into the generative AI data centers. Right, based on the surveys, right, 93% actually of the users actually mentioned that their system is not fully integrated. Right, when you don't have a fully integrated kind of visibility, it's really challenging to get you a very efficient operations, right, and to ensure uptime for the data centers. Looking forward into the future, like how data centers will actually grow in the region, right? In this one was done in 2023, but if you compare for the next 5 years from 2023 to 2027, that's actually almost a 30% kind of increase in data centers capacities, right? And a lot of this actually, if you look at it, actually is coming from the generative AI data centers, which is what everybody is using. Like ChatGPT is one of them. With the demand of the usage, data centers need to actually pick up in terms of their capability, capacity to actually cope with the demand. Right, the cooling trend, what we are cooling in all the data centers, different types of it, right? With all the AI, machine learning, ML kind of stuff, right? Powerful processors will be used, right? Multi-story data center, the co-location kind of types of data center has been pretty common, right? Globalization, customer actually expanding globally, so there are more and more data centers around the region, right? Including Southeast Asia, like Malaysia, Indonesia is actually picking up trends, right? The supply chain having to improve not just the electricity but going water. How do we reduce the water usage in data centers, the power constraint, right, and all the servers and all the requirements of going green. So these are all the cooling trends actually being surfaced in recent years in data centers environment. Right, so let's look into some of the kind of key features that what Johnson Control can kind of offer to the market. Right, we'll be addressing in terms of increase the speed of deployment, which is one of the pain points that we talked about earlier on. Right, being cost efficient, operate your cooling efficiently. Right, on the right hand side you have the enhanced energy efficiencies and how do we help you with our sustainability journeys. Right, continuous safety and security is one key features as well. Right, and lastly, how do we actually operate and guarantee the uptime. Right, just looking at the increase the speed of deployment. Right, so in Johnson Control we actually build we have a lot of equipments or different solutions equipment to put together to help go to market faster. Right, we're actually tapping into our ecosystem as well with those products that we don't have, right, to actually offer a one-stop service to customer. So that actually enhance, right, the whole building program. Right, you can actually deploy and start operating faster. Right, being cost efficient, cooling, that's another key aspect that we talk about. So customer can actually benefit from the state-of-art cooling technology where we actually use different types of systems, putting them together like I mentioned earlier. So that actually save time, task, save cost up to it. Right, we actually have chillers that is actually designed for this kind of co-location, hyperscale kind of growth, right, with a compact footprint. Right, the team is actually working on the chiller design equipment on a year-to-year, so it will just improve, right, as we go. Right, we have solutions ready to go, and it depends on what the market needs. Right, safety and security is also a key features.
At the back, cannot hear.
Thank you. Right, so on the safety and security, so it's the same. We know that it's a key kind of concern, right, when we come to operating a data centers. So we actually have different solutions for the market, right? Like I said, we have fire securities, we have our security arms, equipment solutions that we can actually package for the data centers. Right, reducing your energy demand. Right, I think in Johnson's Control in Singapore we are an energy savings company. So reducing energy demand is actually our key fortes. Right, so having to operate the cooling system efficiently. Right, it's we are actually using like a low energy consumption magnetic bearing chillers. Right, it really depends on your needs of how you want to operate the data centers in different regions. We actually match you with the best equipment that we have in-house. Right, on the sustainability consideration for HVAC equipment, looking really into the cooling. Right, I'm not going to touch on all, but I'll focus on the top few. Right, renewable plus energy efficiencies, growth, reliability. Right, in terms of renewable power and energy efficiencies, right, maximizing the use of renewable energy. So how do we actually introduce renewable energy, or different low carbon type of technologies solutions for data centers? This is where Johnson's Control can come in to actually do a studies for you, feasibility studies, and what makes best for the customer depending on the site location, your house or site setup, right? Whether it's a PV system, a wind system, energy system, or even a fuel cells as a low carbon solutions, right? And the main aim is really to reduce, right, what you are using, right, and maximize, and ensure uptime for the data centers. Right, our sustainable growth in power generation, I think this is one of the key concerns. As many people know, we actually have a limitation in terms of the electricity grid. So as the data centers want to kind of expand, they're actually limited by what the grid can offer. So I mean, with this kind of image, you actually see when you are dealing with a small setup, you need a small micro reactor. But as you grow, you might need to go into a nuclear kind of setup. Right, uptime reliability. Right, multi-story data centers have HVAC equipment actually sitting 200 to 300 above grid. Right, how do we ensure the serviceability? Right, those are critical features. Right, with all the, we are stacking up all the racks, putting in, right? Do you actually create a heat island effect with all the high density equipment? So we must make sure that all this is being run through, tested in extreme condition to ensure uptime, right? And resilient features like fast start is also a key ask for the market in terms of running and maintaining, the operation of the data centers. Right, so moving into as a service model, right? So in Johnson's Control, we have a as a service model, right? Meaning we can actually talk about having the assets being placed under customer side, or we can take over the assets. That's one of them, right? Basically, the whole AAS model, right, is ensuring an outcome being delivered to the customer, right? And Johnson's Control as a solution integrator actually comes in and take over the whole operations, right, and take away the daily, unstoppable kind of repairs ongoing on the whole duration of the life, right? And the best thing is there's a possibility of this solution being a non-upfront capital investment. So this actually speed up, right, the goal of decarbonizing or having to achieve your net zero goals without to worry about the financial part of it. Right? So I touched on a few, right? Preserve capital for the critical mission. So be it just having millions of dollars into the cooling facilities, have this money for actually your IT kind of setup, right? So let us focus from what we are good at, which is the cooling perspective of it, right? And the end customer actually focus on the IT side of it, right? Creating a budget certainty. So in this kind of AAS model, it's either a consumption-based model or a fixed rate. So for an end customer, you can kind of know how much you're going to spend on an annual basis, right, on the cooling service. And utilize end-to-end experience. So we actually drive result using experienced engineers, right, and building technologies to help us achieve, right. You actually create a better outcome for the customer, right, and all these kind of issues will be resolved within one organization itself. Speed up progress, which I touched on earlier, and ensure a cohesive approach. So we actually kind of provide an end-to-end support with nothing to worry. The customer just have a kind of utility consumption setup payment. Right. So in the infrastructure, we actually offer actually four. I'll touch on one quickly. But we kind of have three different kind of models that we actually offer to the market. Right, on the extreme left, you can see is a building as a service. So when we talk about building as a service, we can even do things like lightings or even your renewable energy. Right, we will work with eco partners, right, to provide you an outcome. Right, the outcome is basically you have everything from day one, start operating, right, and we will manage all the including all the ongoing operation and maintenance of all the systems. Right, in infrastructure as a service, we can actually target on limited infrastructure, like let's say chiller, right? The cooling as a service is one, right? I know it's very kind of trendy in Singapore, right? And that we classify under infrastructure as a service. We only focus on a certain infrastructure within the building, right? The last one is energy efficiencies, where we actually comes in and help you to reduce your operation costs looking at electricity. And the last one I actually mentioned was a net zero as a service. Net zero as a service, I just push forward. Net zero as a service is kind of new to the market, right? This is where we actually comes in to craft out a framework, how an organization can achieve net zero. We have an 8-step proven concept that we actually use, and we actually test it in our own manufacturing plant. So these are the 4 as a service model to help kind of expedite the market growth in terms of moving your business and achieving sustainability and net zero goals as you go along. Right, so going a little bit detailed, right, and I mentioned briefly earlier, right, the building as a service actually look at the facilities, your envelope, right, building envelope, and even your target of going net zero. Right. Infrastructure as a service look at, it can be certain equipment. Central utility plant optimization is one of them, right? Now, anything that actually you want to reduce energy, lighting, upgrading, those are possible, or even introducing renewable energy on site. right? And efficiencies or energy services, right? This is where we come in to do optimization for the existing system that you have, kind of giving you a performance contracting outcome. So the outcome is, a certain percentage of reduction in the energy usage of the facilities, or even any percent like scope reduction in terms of carbon. That is possible as KPI as well. Right, so a lot of study has been put in terms of to compare how AAS model actually works, or how beneficial, right, will the customer have if they adopt the AAS service. So from multiple actually studies and reports, including there's a foundation in Switzerland, right, they actually do a studies like having an AAS kind of model, right, your total ownership cost is definitely lower than the traditional. Right, this is because you're tapping into the expertise, the know-how of the solution vendor. Right, like if we are Johnson Control, we have yacht machine, so we know how yacht machine will perform. When do we need to repair? What do we need to kind of ensure that it doesn't fail the operations? So those has been taken care of by us in the AAS model. So in the AAS model, you generally don't just get a business model, right? You actually get all the know-how from the solution you provided. So on the left is what we mentioned earlier, like what are the scope that we kind of be able to offer to the market. But I just want to put it that this is not fixed. We are always open for discussion. But I think that the end thing is we want to deliver values to the customer. So if you have something that is not here, we are open for a discussion, right? We can see how we can help you, right, along with JCI. Right, so next we look into a few kind of new products or technologies that we think that is actually very suitable for data centers. So we have fuel cells system, right? Fuel cells actually generate powers by having natural gas put into it. Right? In terms of efficiencies, right, it's actually more efficient because and reliability uptime you actually have it because it's on-site generation. So the benefits of fuel cells, and we actually done this study in-house. We actually compare to the traditional power grid, right? Fuel cells actually offer lower carbon emission, right? And it's about 15 to 20% lower. So if you want to achieve net zero goals, it actually comes in really handy, so that you don't need to buy so many certificates, right? And also for fuel cells, yes, actually can be a potential primary source for data centers, right? It's modular based. Just now I mentioned there's actually a shortage in electricity grid to support individual buildings. So with fuel cells, we actually kind of address that, right? And actually grow when your business grows. So that's the beauty of having fuel cells systems. Right? So not just fuel cells. So when you have fuel cell systems on site, right, we can actually comes in to do cooling, or we call it the heat recovery. Basically, it's a combined cooling, heating, and power, right? With the fuel cell generating or exhausting a high temperature, we can actually use the temperature, right, and then we put it into our yacht absorption chillers to actually generate what we call a free cooling. So that this actually be beneficial, right, to reduce the capacity needs of the chiller plant. That means a lower kind of capex to the chiller plant, and yet you actually have a free cooling, making the whole system more efficient. So you have reliability, and you're running the whole operation more efficiently. Right, so I was just mentioning about this. So if you look at this from the fuel cells, it goes into a heat recovery system, right, to actually do the heat recovery, and then we go through an economizer and actually put it into the absorption chillers by yacht to actually generate cooling. So you have cooling and power at the same time. Right, so how actually this can be integrated with the data centers? So you have the fuel cells that actually generate power. You can actually put it into the chiller plant system if you want it, right? And you have your grid coming in, be it a primary source or a secondary source, right? Those can still be in place to actually power up the whole operations, and you actually have a cooling to kind of reduce your cooling demand from the from the whole data centers. So this is how we're actually thinking for the play in data centers. Right. So this is another view. This is actually one of the projects. Right. So the free cooling, you can actually use it to do cooling, and the water here can be really low in terms of 3 to 4 degrees. Right, so the other options when we actually do a fuel cells, we can not only just have free cooling like we mentioned, but there's also an opportunity for us to do a carbon capture throughout this process. So when you do a carbon capture, right, end of the process, we actually can store the storage tank, and of course you can actually sell it to those people who actually use the carbon, or that will actually give you revenue. But so this is kind of the potential that we actually see with the data centers, right, leveraging the fuel cells and actually our yacht absorption chillers kind of capability to give you a low carbon solutions for data centers. Right, so this is kind of the last slide. So for data centers, your building is your product. Right, for Johnson's Control, we actually come with an approach with a whole integrated kind of solution offering to the market. Right. Any questions? If not, thank you. Please enjoy the rest of the day.